Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this episode of Chess Basics, things every chess player ought to know. Today we're going to take a look, we're going back to the openings, and we're going to take a look at the exchange variation of the Ruy Lopez, continuing in our series on the Ruy Lopez opening. So let's take a look at it. It goes e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop b4 to Ruy Lopez. And black plays a6, the Morphy defense, and white, instead of retreating his bishop, takes the knight. And so that's called the exchange variation for obvious reasons, because there's an exchange. And the first point black has to remember is to take back with the d-pawn. And I covered this in an earlier video. You're setting up this trick where if white tries to grab that pawn, you have the move queen to d4 with a double attack against the knight and the pawn, and you get the pawn back. So at this point, white is not really threatening to win that pawn, but white is playing this with a different idea, and the most common move by white at this point is castles. And so the first, or the second thing you need to know, the first thing was take with the d-pawn. The second thing you need to know is your trick no longer works. If you were to make a normal developing move here and ignore the threat to your e-pawn, then white can take it. And if you continue with this idea of the fork, he can retreat his knight to f3, attacking your queen. And now your best move is actually just to retreat the queen, because when you take the pawn with the queen, splat, your queen gets pinned against the king, and it's lost. So you don't want to play that. What you want to do is, after he castles, you need to defend this pawn. And the most common move to defend it, which is maybe this is the third thing you need to remember about the opening, is this funny move f6. And you would normally not want to play this move because it creates a weakness on the king's side, and all these light squares are weak, and there's a possibility of a check coming in here. But an important thing to note is that white has already traded off his light squared bishop, so he doesn't have a bishop to take advantage of those light squares, and the piece you have to watch out for is the queen at this point. And a lot of lines in the in this variation lead to an exchange of queens, and that's why that's what black is actually playing for here. So the next move here is often d4, trying to open up the center. You can take, knight takes, and you can play the move c5. And now the knight has to retreat somewhere, and you can take the queens off. And now this is a very safe position for black. It's not easy. I don't mean to say it's easy, because there's still a lot of force on the board, and you are slightly less developed. White has already castled. He's got an active rook and an active knight. So you have to play cautiously. But at the very top levels, black can defend this position pretty well. And so it has a very drawish tendency, and that's why you don't see it at the top level so much anymore. But at the club level, it's still quite a playable opening. And so how do you get your pieces out? One thing is to, one idea is to put a bishop here, or alternatively here, just to block that rook, and maybe develop this bishop to this square. To block the rook and then castle queenside, because you're going to be able in this position to castle queenside faster than you can after the exchange here. Yeah, it's black's turn. You're going to be able to castle queenside faster than you can castle kingside. Get your king out of the center. White's going to try and develop his pieces. And your strategy is going to be to undouble your pawns, perhaps by pushing the c-pawn forward some more, and try and get your bishops active. Your advantage in this position is you have a pair of bishops, and black just has one bishop. White just has one bishop. So if you can get your king to safety and then open up some lines for your bishops, you should have a good game with black. So let's back up. That's one way to play. Another way to play is in this position. Well, let's back all the way up to the kind of the starting position here. So so white castled. You play f6 to defend the pawn. White plays d4, you take, and the knight takes. Instead of playing c5 here and going for the exchange of queens, if you would rather keep the queens on, you can try this move, knight to e7. And the idea is if the queen comes out to check you, the knight could go to g6 to block that. And play could continue with a knight move like this. You get your knight out of the way, and he develops another piece, and now you can develop a piece, maybe bishop here. Or you might want to develop this bishop and castle kingside. Different ways to play. It is important to notice that White has a lead in development once again. He's castled and he's got 3 pieces out, and you have not castled and you only have 1 piece out. So you do have to be cautious that White doesn't get too much of an initiative here, and that's why I think the line with exchanging queens is more popular because White's development advantage is less serious in those cases. But this is still playable, and once you get your king to safety, either on the king side or the queen side, in the long run, your 2 bishops will be an advantage for you. They'll give you some extra control over the light squares. So that's the other way to play it. Let's back up and check out a few other choices that White has. The old way to play it, before they came up with this move of castling, was to play d4 right away. This also leads to a position where the queens come off. And so it's similar in a way to what we looked at. Once again, you have the advantage of the 2 bishops, and White has the advantage of a lead in development. He can castle quicker and get these pieces out. And you also have the doubled pawns. But this is quite playable and pretty even game here, so nothing to be afraid of there. And the other thing White can try at this point is simply defending with a move like d3 or a move like knight to c3. Let's take knight c3 as an example. And once again, you want to defend your e-pawn with a pawn. And if he castles, then we'll get into similar kinds of positions as we saw before. So I think that's really all you need to know in order to play the exchange variation of the Ruy Lopez. Now, my philosophy on this is there's no point in studying an opening really deeply unless you're going to experience it. So, just get out there, start playing the Ruy Lopez, and find out if any of your opponents go for the exchange variation. And then you know a little bit about how to play it. And if they play it a lot, or you find yourself getting into trouble, then at that point you can consult an opening book or a computer and try and figure out where you went wrong and how you can improve your opening play. But for now, I just wanted to give you a little something to help you get started with this. So that'll conclude this episode of Chess Basics. And next week, I'm going to take a look at the next episode. I'm going to take a look at the Berlin defense. So stay tuned for that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Leave any comments you have in the section below. Thanks. Bye.